Video 3. Commonly asked questions about remote lessons.
Hi! Welcome! Good to see
Hello
you.
there.
Welcome!
It's no secret that the remote setting brings in certain challenges for the learning situation. Let's take a look at those next and see how we are trying to solve them. In a remote setting, the communication happens through devices. This brings its own characteristics and challenges to the situation. That's why it's quite natural that most of the commonly asked questions have something to do with communication through devices. Maybe the most important question that we hear a lot is how to engage the children through the screen. Here, what you do is not so important as how you do it. When the teacher is really present in the situation and is enthusiastic, the children will follow. This does not mean that the teacher has to be an electric bunny, jump around and act all excited when they're not. You can teach in an engaging way while being calm and collected, whatever your teaching style is.
How could we observe it? Could we listen to it?
Some tips on how to pay attention to the interaction with the children are to 1. Pay attention to your gestures and facial expressions. Don't be afraid to jump into the science play with the children. 2. When a child makes a comment, really listen to it and make it clear that their comments and thoughts are valuable in the situation.
No, scientists figure it out.
Even though they are taking part remotely, it was their thoughts and their help that helped the characters get out of trouble. Remember to highlight that.
Is it water?
3. If you hear someone even hinting at the right thing, jump into it.
Somebody said vinegar. Yes!
What we mean by this is that sometimes it might be difficult to hear what they are saying, and you might not be sure if you heard them right. You can still readily respond. One of the most commonly asked questions is how to pay attention to each child through the screen and how to make sure everyone can take part. There are a couple of things you can do. 1. You can ask the whole group to answer simple questions by using gestures.
If you would like me to read it, put your thumbs up.
Such as a simple thumbs up or down, or coming up with other gestures as you go.
How cool!
2. Depending on the children and the group, it might also be a good idea to use the mute function and give the children their individual turn to tell their observations one at a time.
Yeah, you can tell me, Ayan.
However, this might not be the best option with all groups at all times. You can try if sometimes having all the mics on will make it easier for the children to communicate. For instance, if you have the mics off and you ask for the children to tell their observations one-to-one, it can be that 6 of the first children you ask don't want to say anything, and only the 7th answers.
Mira, what's happened?
If the mics were on, this child who wanted to share could have answered straight away. Also, especially with the youngest scientists, they might feel rejected when they don't really understand that the teacher can't hear them, and they try to eagerly communicate without being noticed. So, there are both good and challenging points in each method. So, this is something you will notice with practice. 3. Another thing you can do through the lesson is to ask the scientists to show you their findings or results through the camera. You can also ask them to show you their work when you're reporting and tell them, for instance, that Joseli can scan all their work with his laser gaze, or whatever you come up with. 4. Something to also keep in mind is that when you say something like,
Such good scientist
"Wow,
work!"
doesn't that look great?" and "How beautiful colors you have made," most of the children are likely to think that you are talking directly at them, even though you directed it to the screen in general. You don't need to make each comment to each child individually for it to feel like you're having personal communication with them.
I'm seeing really, really nice blue. Wow.
Another question that we hear a lot is, what is the parent's role in a remote lesson? Our goal is that the lessons would be so easy that children could manage almost everything by themselves. The parent is needed for preparations, and parents are responsible that setup is safe for the child. For example, electricity and water are not too close to each other on the table. Of course, with the youngest scientists, from 3 to 4-year-olds, the parents are always needed because of fine motor challenges. But with 5-year-olds, it can be enough if the parent is just present in the same room, but does not actually participate in the lesson. Before the lesson, the parent can guide the child with technical issues like mute function or writing questions to chat if the child is old enough to write. Something we get asked as well is how to deal with the timing. First of all, even though our lessons are planned to take 45 minutes, this long stretch of time might be difficult to concentrate in front of the screen, especially with the youngest scientists. Thus, it might not be a bad idea to see if it would be possible to offer 30 to 40-minute lessons for the youngest scientists at least. When you do have a full 45-minute lesson, make sure to encourage the children to actively participate and to really get hands-on with the problem and task at hand. Keeping them active will make it easier to pay attention for a longer stretch of time. If you happen to have a lesson where you have gone through the experiments rather quickly and are ready before the set time, you can always put more focus on the reporting. You can ask the children to, for instance, draw their findings or even write them. You can also ask the scientists to practice an important scientist skill, cleaning, and ask them to start putting away their supplies, and so on. Also, if this seems to happen often, you could pay attention to the following.
What about Anand?
Allowing more time for the children to answer individually. Take your time with the experiments. Don't rush through them, but encourage the children to communicate their observations. If you have sent them some home experiments, you can discuss them.
Hope you had fun. Bye.